Tanaiste, on Tuesday we heard from the Special Liquidator of IBRC that they had secured a voluntary agreement with the bidders for the Irish nationwide mortgages, that they would voluntarily adhere to the Code of Conduct of Mortgage Arrears. Yesterday the Special Liquidator appeared before the Finance Committee and we heard of this voluntary agreement, that there will be no oversight, there will be no central bank involvement, there will be no sanctions, there will be no recourse to the Financial Ombudsman. And indeed, Tanaiste, we found out that the voluntary agreement isn't even written down, so from the family's perspectives I think it's fair to say that this voluntary agreement isn't worth the paper that it's not even written on. But Tanaiste, the second issue is that the nationwide mortgage holders want to bid on their own mortgages. Now, they've been refused, and the rationale given by the liquidator and by Minister Noonan is that allowing the mortgage holders to bid for their own mortgages would potentially drive down the total sales price, therefore exposing the state to legal challenge from creditors. The sales process, Tanaiste, is based on a report from PwC. Now, Minister Noonan has refused to release the report and the Special Liquidator hasn't released it as yet, but we did find out some very useful things from the Special Liquidator about the report yesterday. We know that the report recommended a single course of action, which is the course that's being followed. We know that the report did not evaluate different options in terms of the sales price. And indeed, the liquidator agreed with the Finance Committee, or told the Finance Committee yesterday, Tanaiste, that sales prices of the different scenarios were not provided. In other words, the liquidator has not been provided with advice that says, if you allow the mortgage holders to bid, we think the sales price would be this, and if you don't allow them to bid, we think the sales price would be something else. So, Tanaiste, it's still entirely possible that a sales price could be developed which would allow the families to bid for their own mortgages, which would garner the same sales price or potentially even more than the current process. We have an example in the media today. Let's take one that we know about, which is Duncan Ballantyne.
Thanks.
We know, Tanaiste, that Mr Ballantyne offered the Special Liquidators 97% in the euro for his loans, but the Special Liquidator yesterday sold his loans as part of a tranche to Lone Star for 60% in the euro, thereby getting €55 million less for Mr Ballantyne's loans than has actually been achieved in yesterday's sale. So, Tanaiste, I think there is still an opportunity here, but time is ticking. The liquidator, based on the information he gave us yesterday, is acting on incomplete advice. Minister Noonan confirmed to me last night in response to a PQ that neither he nor any of his officials have even seen the report that this entire sales process is being based on. So, Tanaiste, can I ask you, do you agree that there is an opportunity here to pause the sales process and for a thorough investigation to be done by Minister Noonan, by his officials, by the Finance Committee, to see if a process can be designed that allows the families to bid and that still returns to the liquidator the same price? I do think, Tanaiste, that we have a very small window of opportunity to do enormous good for the many thousands of families who own these mortgages. Thank you.
Concordia, well, the Special Liquidators, as I understand it, has reached agreement with the Phase 2 bidders for the IBRC mortgage book. The agreement, I understand, provides that if successful in acquiring the portfolio, the Phase 2 bidders will ensure that the relevant acquired mortgage loans are serviced in accordance with the Central Bank Code of Conduct on Mortgage Arrears. The Special Liquidators appeared before the Finance Committee yesterday and explained their decision. I understand that they were aware of the anxieties of mortgage holders and had noted the concerns expressed in recent weeks by the Minister for Finance and other members of the Oireachtas. I welcome this positive announcement, and I would remind the House that the Government has always been clear that we would ensure that mortgage holders retain the protection of the CCMA. However, as the Government has previously stated, if it becomes evident that the voluntary application of the Code is not delivering the requisite protection for mortgage holders in arrears, Government will bring forward the required legislation. Looking beyond the IBRC Loanbook sale, as discussed at the Oireachtas Finance Committee, the Department of Finance, the Central Bank and the Attorney General's Office are examining the applicability of the CCMA to unregulated firms and the need for legislation in this regard. we have continuously stated that we expected any purchaser of the IBRC mortgage portfolio would service them in accordance with the CCMA, and that remains the position. As the Deputy is aware, the sales process is being undertaken and being pursued by the Special Liquidator. It's part of the liquidation. Process. It operates independently under its own legal basis. But as far as the government is concerned, we are clear in our mind that we want to protect the interests of the mortgage holders in the IBRC. There have been 2 previous sales of loan books, and in both cases the purchasers agreed to the operation of the CCMA, the continued operation of the CCMA. The 2 bidders in this case have given an undertaking that they will follow suit on that. If they don't deliver on that undertaking, as I said, the government will bring forward whatever legislation is required.
Thank you. Deputy Donnelly.
I can only assume you picked up the wrong piece of paper to read out. I didn't ask you about legislation for the CCMA. I asked you if we can pause the sales process to figure out if a sales process can be devised that allows the families to bid on their own mortgages, that returns the same or greater sales value to the liquidators. Let me give you a quick example from the protest outside Tanaiste. There's a gentleman I spoke to, himself, his wife and his kids live in a home. They owe €220,000. They're in arrears and they're not going to be in a position to pay that money back. The liquidator is going to sell his mortgage at a highly conservative estimate for about €100,000. It could be as little as €50,000. He's going to sell that mortgage for, let's say, €100,000. Now, this man and his wife could refinance at $150,000, but they're not being given the opportunity. So what is likely to happen, and I put this to the liquidator yesterday and he did not disagree, what is likely to happen is one of the 2 final bidders, both are whom are funds from the US who specialise in distressed assets, are going to buy this family's €220,000 mortgage for about €100,000. They will quickly ascertain that he and his wife cannot pay that. They will then ascertain that there is equity in the house, and they will initiate repossession proceedings, and they will evict him, his wife and his children. So that's what's coming for him. My question to you is, on the basis that the liquidator is acting on imperfect information and Minister Noonan hasn't even seen the advice, it is clear to me that a process could be devised that allows this man, his wife and his children and thousands of other families to stay in their homes by buying their mortgages back at the same price or even more that those mortgages are about to be sold to international funds that invest in distressed assets. And what I'm asking is, on the basis that what is about to happen is going to cause enormous and unnecessary distress in our country to tens of thousands of men, women and children.
Please, you're way over time.
Can you please examine whether the sales process can be paused so that we can at least try and figure out a process that allows these people to stay in their homes while still returning the same amount or more to the liquidator? Thank you.
Open your eyes.
Tanaiste.
Well, Deputy Donnelly, you're very knowledgeable and you know how liquidations operate. You know how the liquidation process works, and you know too the risks to the taxpayer of an interference by the state in the liquidation process. And it's easy to say, well, let's pause the sale. There are consequences to that which might arise from actions taken by other creditors, other people involved in the IBRC liquidation process. And you'd have to be very, very careful and very sure that there wouldn't be an exposure to the taxpayer of any such intervention of that kind. Secondly, I don't think this process is not concluded. What we have here, what the Special Liquidator told the committee, is that there are 2 bidders that arising from the concerns that have been expressed about the position of the mortgage holders. Those 2 bidders have given an undertaking that they will comply with the CCMA, as was the case in the sale of 2 previous loan books that have happened. But the sale process isn't complete. And I think it would be, I don't think it is wise to start to speculate. I don't think it is wise to start to speculate. That's a matter for the special liquidator. That's a matter for the special liquidator. What I want to see the mortgage holders protected here. If the purchaser, whoever that may be at the end of the day, does not meet the commitments that we expect and the standards that we expect, then the government is prepared to legislate. And such legislation would apply not just in the case of the IBRC mortgage holders, but in the case of all mortgage holders. In any event, I think it is fair to say that cases that go before the courts, and you mentioned the issue of repossession, a repossession case would have to, in any event, go before the courts, and we know the approach that the courts is taking, and that is that they are expecting that the terms of the CCMA would be applied.
Thank you.